All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about this. This is PlayStation 4 Pro version of Sekiro. Shadow dies twice, and I have my HDR turned off, and the television you're looking at, it's LG E8 OLED. Okay, and what a surprise! Me turning the HDR off gave me a much better depth of picture, gave me a much better three-dimensional feel and look to it. Everything looks more natural now when I turn that fake HDR off. And that's really what it is, guys. It's a fake HDR. They're using this old technique that's mastering 32-bit per channel on 8-bit. Okay, it's not even designed. That tone mapping they're using, it's a 15 years old tone mapping that was used in 2002 by this guy Eric something. I forgot his last name. It was named after him. And the tone mapping they're using, it's tone mapping that was used for the 8-bit. This is a 10-bit. And it looks very flat. Flat. What do I mean by flat? I mean everything's kind of brightened up. Everything looks bleak. You know, like the fog came down on top of it. Everything looks like a one big fog. Does that make sense? Here, there's no fog. Here, everything looks nice and detailed. Especially in the OLED. So this is without HDR. Here, let me show you. This is without HDR. As you can see, I turned the HDR off. Okay? And I did adjust my brightness to 10. Okay? Now, I want you to see what's going to happen when I turn that HDR back on. Look, I hope that you can at least see a little bit. At least get a little hint from the camera. But trust me, it's bleak. No matter how much I move that peak brightness, no matter how much I move that brightness level down, up and down, doesn't really matter. It still looks very flat. The peak brightness, it's nowhere to be found there. It's a very low peak brightness of nits. Okay, here you're getting a much better peak brightness of nits when you turn that HDR off. The OLED is doing its job with that A9 processor and that 840, 870 nits peak of brightness that I have cranked up on this OLED light. Now let me turn the HDR back on. Let's do that. In about 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at this. Everything looks kind of washed out. Washed out. I don't see that peak brightness that I want to see. I don't see it. Now people say, but how could you call this a fake HDR? Because it doesn't have the tone mapping required for today's generation of HDR. HDR 10-bit, where it needs a higher peak brightness of tone mapping, where it needs a proper color gamut. Okay, there's a software that can depict to see how much of that color gamut it's being implemented into the HDR tone mapping, how much of the contrast ratio there is on that tone mapping to bring that peak brightness. And here, that's just not the case. Now let's go back to HDR off. Let me turn the HDR off in about 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And look at this, man. The black digital levels are much better. It has a much better reflection of the light. Everything looks better, more natural, the way it should be. It feels as if that snowflakes are coming out of the screen. Everything looks better. Okay? Even here, if we leave it like this on this position, it looks better. Next to the moon, like right here, even here. Maybe we need to find a better position. Okay, how about like right here? Maybe, hold on, here, we'll do it like this. like this, like right here. We'll do it like this. And let's go switch that HDR back on. Let's switch that HDR back on in about 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It looks as if the fog came down. Look at this. Like there's a bunch of fog. Like bunch of smoke here. It looks there's a bunch of smoke here. Like bunch of fog. It's piling up on top of it. Keep an eye on this area. Let me turn off this HDR. This fake HDR. This horrible tone mapping. Let's turn this sucker off in about 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And look at this. Much more redefined, much better. It looks more natural the way it should be. Okay? The way it should be. The way it should be. Okay? This is the same case scenario that we had with Red Dead. You know what? I haven't been using HDR on Red Dead Redemption 2. I turned that sucker off. I don't need it. With the OLED, I don't even need it. I don't even need it. I already got my OLED HDR. OLED's giving me that HDR that I need, okay? I already got that quality on the OLED. But you don't want to turn that sucker on Red Dead Redemption 2. Not to mention that the Rockstar has even stripped down the ambient occlusion. Like, what's going on? I mean, this is why kudos to Ubisoft. Kudos to Ubisoft. Ubisoft. Now, let's jump into the Ubisoft. Let me show you what the real HDR looks like. The real tone mapping of the HDR. I'm going to jump into Division 2 right now with PlayStation 4 Pro. I'm going to jump on the Division right now. Division 2 right now. Well, there you go. Watch and learn. This is how you do a proper tone mapping on the HDR. Rockstar, From Software, and all the other games out there who use all that fake crap. HDR, 8-bit compression, SDR container. This is how you do a proper tone mapping on the HDR. Okay, this is it. This is Division 2. This is why I say kudos to Ubisoft. Kudos to them for making a proper HDR. I mean, look at this. This is just simply amazing, dude. Just simply amazing. I don't think so. The SDR is not coming through. Just look at this tone mapping over here on the Division 2 Ubisoft. This is how you do a proper HDR. Okay? And this year, nobody knows how to do it better. And even last year, nobody knows how to do it better than Ubisoft and, of course, Playground Games. And who's the other developer of the Forza 7 and Forza 6? I forgot. But these three companies, they know exactly how to do it properly. This is a proper tone mapping of HDR. Okay, this is what HDR is about. It's about giving that natural look on the picture. So it looks natural, so it doesn't look washed out. Okay? When we go back to Sekiro and we turn the HDR on, everything looks as if the fog has come down and everything looks like one big giant smoke of fog and haze. Because we got, excuse my language, a half-assed tone mapping, old technique tone mapping that they're using here. Okay? I mean, look at this. Look, this is a proper HDR. This is a proper HDR. Even that no entry where it says there looks very bright. Everything looks the way it should be. Look at that light over here, that street light, and how naturally that's being implemented here. That's a proper tone mapping. Now, Capcom's good. Some people say, well, look, Capcom, it's still great. Capcom is also good when it comes to HDR. They did a great job on Resident Evil 7. They did a great job on Resident Evil 2. And they did a great job on Devil May Cry 5. I'm sorry, Devil May Cry 5. Capcom's good. I would say Ubisoft, Playground Games, Capcom, these three companies right now, they just simply get it. And of course we have to see this new exclusive PlayStation game that's coming out, Days Gone. I already pre-ordered it. We're going to see how well the HDR is going to look there. I'm pretty sure it's going to look good, but we'll see. Let's go back to Sekiro, sadly, and let's turn that HDR on. But before we go to Sekiro, I mean, just look at this, man. Come on. Come on, man. Look how beautiful this looks, man. Proper tone mapping. The HDR looks here the way it should. Even the reflection of her device there on the halo, it's properly tone mapped. Ubisoft is the king right now when it comes to the HDR. There's really nobody better right now than them that's doing this. Okay? And I'm sorry, but right now I don't know if there's anybody better than them. Alright, let's go back to Sekiro. And look at his god-awful blow-up gray HDR. This is the gray tone mapping. Everything looks like a smoke, like one big giant smoke. Everything's lit up like a smoke. Barely any tone mapping here. Okay, this is your HDR on the Sekiro. Let's turn off this HDR again in about 3 seconds. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. And it's just so much better. So much better, man. In many, many ways. Here, just to show you that it's turned off, and it's right here. Let me show it to you. There, HDR is turned off. It is turned off. And look, it's much, much better. But let's turn that HDR back on. Let's turn that HDR back on. Let's do it. Look, everything's overblown with the brightness. Yes, you can regulate it, but even when you regulate the brightness, it becomes even more dimmer. The point you guys are missing is that when it comes to HDR, it has to have a proper tone mapping, so that way everything looks more natural. Like this light here, this flame here has to look more natural, it has to reflect more natural. Okay, the HDR is about bringing a natural picture quality, but I'm not seeing that here on this HDR. You've seen what I just shown you with Ubisoft and what Ubisoft is doing. Compared to this, come on. But let's turn off this HDR in about 3 seconds. Actually 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, look at that. It's like night and day, man. It's like night and day. Everything looks more natural as it should be. And that's what you want in a game like this. You want stuff to look more natural. You don't want stuff to look washed out, okay? And this is what I was trying to tell you guys. All right? Some companies, they just don't want to, some developers, they just want to do a cheap HDR. Same thing goes with the Anthem, with EA. Really, you're going to spend all these years working on that Anthem, but you can't even bring a proper HDR. You can't even bring proper HDR on the Battlefield 5. You can't even bring proper HDR on the Madden. Okay, FIFA's an exception. FIFA HDR looks pretty good, but that's one exception. Look at Formula One. Okay, Formula One. It's a good example. The company, I forgot the name of the company that created the Formula One 2018 racing game. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of developer. I apologize. Okay. And look what they have done with Formula 2018. Look at the HDR on that Formula 2018. Okay, it just looks amazing. Okay, Codemasters. I'm sorry, Codemasters. Codemasters. Look what they have done with the Formula One 2018. It just looks unbelievable. Even Crackdown 3. I mean, even though I know the Crackdown 3 got a lot of backlash, but I still enjoy the game. I still play it. But look at Crackdown 3. Look what they've done with the Crackdown 3. But let's face it, Ubisoft and Playground games from Forza Horizon. These developers need to talk to either Playground Games from Forza Horizon or Ubisoft. Seriously, if you want the best HDR, you got to talk to the Ubisoft. They're going to show you what technique they're using to achieve that best possible tone mapping. Okay? And if you guys don't know what the tone mapping is, then I don't have time right now to burn my memory here recording. Google it, research it. Okay, tone mapping, it's kind of like you painting. You're painting this level to make sure that this level it's lit up properly for the 10-bit panel with a high peak brightness on that HDR metadata. Static metadata. Okay? What is the static metadata? Again, I've done video on that processing, how that works. I have done video on that. Google it, research it. You will see me showing up with the videos on it as well. I got close to 4,000 videos. But I'm just telling you right now, guys, you want the HDR off here. Turn that off. Oh, and before I finish the video, turn the HDR off and go to the options. Turn the HDR off, turn it off completely, and then come down here to the brightness and move the brightness to 10. Okay, you cannot use the picture quality here because that's only for the HDR. So, that's it. Turn it off for now. If From Software sends some new patch, a new update that will fix this HDR, then I might turn it back on. If they send the patch to fix this issue. If they don't send the patch to fix this issue, which I doubt they will, that's fine by me. It looks great without HDR. Looks great. Especially on the OLED. You're going to appreciate this. Turning this, especially, listen, for those of you who have OLED, do me a favor. Do me a favor tonight, whenever you get home, whenever you have time, I don't care. When you get home, fire up this game on your OLED and turn off the HDR. Turn the HDR back on and turn it off, and you will see what I'm talking about. Okay? Give it a try. All right? So, there you go. There you have it. I'm surprised that Digital Foundry didn't talk about this too much. I had to find this out from Evil Boris because I was trying to get in touch through my friend John Crow, and John Crow contacted Evil Boris to do some tests on this. And I think he did contact him. I don't know. And then he posted it today, and he explained that they were using an old technique since 2002. It's basically designed, the tone mapping it's used mainly for the 8-bit panels. It's not used for the 10-bit panels. And that's why it looks washed out. That's why it looks gray, blend, bleak, flat, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Well, there you have it. 20 minutes here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And what can I tell you, guys? It is what it is. Turn that HDR off. Turn it off. But if you're playing a Ubisoft game, if you're playing a Division 2, or if you're playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, turn that sucker on. Turn the HDR on all of the Ubisoft games. turn that HDR on, crank it up if you want to appreciate the HDR. Well, there you have it, guys. That's all I got for you today. I did a bunch of videos today, so enjoy it. And I did a bunch of videos yesterday, including the live stream. I'll catch you guys tomorrow with Q&A. Tomorrow, Q&A we'll do. Around sometime afternoon, 2:30, 3 o'clock, we'll do a Q&A. Between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, we'll do a Q&A. Take care. Have a good one, though. I appreciate you guys subscribing, sharing. Thank you so much. I want you to know that I do appreciate 30,000 plus subscribers. I do appreciate that. Thank you.